Welcome to Inspiring Women in Audit, the only podcast celebrating the achievements and journeys of women in the internal audit industry. In each episode, we spotlight the extraordinary stories, insights, and expertise of these dynamic professionals. Our aim is to amplify their voices, inspiring a new generation of women auditors to share their knowledge, experiences, and unique perspectives. Remember to check our show notes for links to our social media channels and to subscribe to the Inspiring Women in Audit newsletter. This podcast is brought to you by I4 Global Results Limited, the audit communication experts, dedicated to transforming your audit reporting and your audit results through communication, optimization, and collaboration. Now, let's dive into this episode of Inspiring Women in Audit.
Welcome, everyone, to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast, dedicated to empowering and uplifting women within the internal audit industry. By amplifying their voices, we aim to encourage women in the audit profession to share their knowledge, experience, and unique perspectives. I'm your host, Tracy Marquardt, and I'm super excited today because I have Jaimie Yang here with me. Jaimie and I met at the IIA Ignite conference just last month. Now, Jaimie is a senior manager of IT Audit at McKesson Corporation based in Carrollton, Texas. She leads a team of auditors overseeing comprehensive IT and integrated audits. Jaimie has accomplished a lot in her career so far, and so much so that she recently received recognition for her professional developments. She was honored as one of the Texas Society of Certified Public Accountants 2024 Rising Stars, and that was just in June this year. Jaimie is a certified public accountant, holds a CIA designation and a CISA designation. And she's actively involved with the Institute of Internal Audit, serving on the Emerging Leaders Mentoring Knowledge Group, that's a mouthful, Jaimie, which focuses on connecting and supporting young professionals in the field. So you've done so much, and we have a lot to talk about. There's even some little things I don't want to mention yet, and you probably know what I'm talking about. I'll just make the little hand gesture here. But thank you so much for joining me, Jaimie, and welcome to the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. I'm so excited to be talking with you today.
It's awesome, because emerging leaders are really the future of our profession. So it's a delight to have you here with me. And we did have kind of a pre-call just to let everyone know. We had a little chat about some things that are important to Jaimie and how things would work. And one of the things that we talked about was your path to internal audit. So I know your path has this kind of fun family connection. Your mom was an accountant and your dad was an electrical engineer, and you and your brother followed in their footsteps. So how did you end up on the audit side of these things?
So I actually had my major suggested to me by my mother, and she thought I would be really interested in the logic and the business background for accounting. So when I was in school at UT Dallas, I was actually both in the public accounting and internal audit track. And I ended up choosing internal audit because to me, I wanted the opportunity to work as a partner to the business and explore all the ins and outs for a specific industry versus having multiple types of industries and clients.
It's interesting because you talk about the logic, or your mom talked about the logic of the accounting profession. I mean, I started out as a chartered accountant, and I left audit thinking, well, my title is chartered accountant. I must have to do accounting, right? And I was very quickly, I realized it's a routine, and you do the same thing over and over again, like every month, kind of thing. I have this joke: why did the accountant cross the road?
You did it in the prior year work papers?
Yeah, you did it last month, right?
You did it
So
last month?
that's talking about the accountant and not the auditor. So I switched to auditing, and you switched to auditing too. And any regrets?
No regrets. I still really love what I do, and I have a lot of passion for helping other people enjoy what they do and find their niche as well.
I love that. I love that because that leads us into you being named Rising Star by the Texas CPA Society. Number one, congratulations on that, because I think that is just a massive recognition to be recognized by your peers this way. And congratulations. So can you tell me how that came about? And maybe a little bit about what you do with the Texas CPA Society?
Sure. So I am the chair of the Partners in Education Committee. This is my fifth year currently running this committee, and our committee charter is to educate and inform students of any grade level, but we do focus on middle school, high school, and college of accounting as a profession and as a career path. So we interact with a lot of the different schools and universities in the DFW area. And what we do is we have CPAs and accountants who are working in the industry now to go out to those schools and do presentations, go to career fairs, identify mentoring opportunities to work with these students and to just let them know that this is a career option that is available to them and to spark that interest. So the award came about because when I first started with the committee several years ago, there wasn't a process in place for any of those work streams, those being identifying speaking opportunities with the schools, identifying volunteers and building out a volunteer listing to fill those opportunities, and then tracking and meeting our metrics. So I implemented automated ways to identify speaking opportunities in the DFW area, and we've met or exceeded our speaking engagement goals for the last several years.
I mean, that's amazing, number one, because you've been doing this for 5 years now.
Yes.
Just the impact of that must be monumental in your community.
We have thousands of students that we outreach to over time, and we get so much positive feedback from the teachers who we've worked with them over several years. So now they're saying they've talked to former students who are now in either an accounting degree or accounting track because of the presentation that we gave to their classroom several years ago, which is so great.
I think that's amazing because when I think back to me, right, I can't imagine what kind of presentation it would take to get me interested in joining the accounting field. So can I ask you, what kind of things do you do in your presentation to make it interesting for everyone?
We have a standard template, and in the template, it has the presenter speak to their personal journey and their personal career path. So anything that they've done that has led them down the path of being an accountant or the different types of industries or roles that they've had, because there's a lot of exit opportunities as well for accounting. So sometimes we have somebody who goes into accounting or audit and then leaves, does something else, and then comes back, um, like yourself. So, we try to make it really personal and share that it's not just a job, but it's something that can evolve with you as you go along your journey.
I think that's so true because for me, being a chartered accountant, and later we switched in Canada to CPA, chartered professional accountant. It's like having a second passport in the back pocket of your jeans. So I was able to get visas to go and work in the States, and I worked in the States
Wow.
for 8.5 or 9 years. Yeah. And it none of that would have been possible had I not had, my chartered accountancy designation. And so even though I didn't stay in accounting, I did it for about 4 years in California before I realized, "Yeah, maybe this isn't the thing for me," and started getting the itch to start working with audit again. Um, so it's interesting that you started in accounting, that your mom actually recommended that you've done so much work in your community and that you continue to do that, for the Texas chapter as well as for the IIA as well, right?
Yeah.
So, all right. Can you tell us maybe a little bit, about what you do for the IIA for emerging leaders and, maybe how this ties to the mentoring, that seems to be close to your heart from some of the things that we've talked about?
Sure. So with the IA, I help run and administer the global mentoring program. We recently kicked off the 2024 to 2025 program year, which I believe has about 800, 900 participants this year from both a mentee mentor perspective. Um, and that program's been running for several years as well. This program pairs individuals across the whole world with a mentor looking at their industry, years of experience, things like that, to help identify somebody who can help the other person grow, and that growth goes both ways. So the mentor benefits just as much as the mentee, and a lot of the feedback we get has been really positive to say that experience and even having those discussions with a mentee has helped the mentor learn something or gain a new perspective on something.
And do you do mentoring yourself as well?
So I volunteer locally at the UT Dallas student chapter to provide mentorship and coaching for students. And I've been involved in that program in various ways since I was a student myself. That's taken the form of hosting student internships for the students going through their internal audit class for the first time. We typically have a student intern walk through the entire audit process while they're learning the content in class, so they get real world experience as they're learning things from a textbook and the professor. There are also opportunities for volunteers to interact with students on their different case studies and case presentations, so that's a lot of fun as well.
That's awesome. And I think I'm gonna just put out there for everyone who's listening, Jamie's dance card is full right now. So don't everybody bombard her LinkedIn messaging and sending DMs asking her to be a mentor. But what I do love is that you promote this so much um, in your community, and whether it's local or whether it's at the IIA level. I think there's so much more that we can all do as the audit community to encourage younger folks to actually take an interest in it, because I do think it's one of the best jobs, one of the best careers that you can have, because you see so much, you experience so much. You're I don't think I've worked with a bad apple ever in the internal audit, not in my experience anyway. So it's just a really great community to be part of, very supportive community. So I think that's a super thing that you're mentoring. And should I ask, are you going to continue this work with emerging leaders for the time being and the rising stars?
For the time being, yes, I do plan on stepping down from my chair position for the PIE committee with the Texas Society of CPAs next at the end of this program year.
Hmm.
But I've been asked to volunteer on two other committees, so I think that will take up the rest of my free time.
Well, when you're that good and once you get involved, it's hard for everyone to want to let you go. I'm absolutely positive. And that kind of leads me, from the mentoring into the coaching. I know you have a particular approach to coaching your team. And could you share how you do that? In my research, I'll just drop this in before I invite you to answer. In my research, I saw I show, we do, you do. And is that something you can elaborate on as part of the coaching that you do for your team?
Yes. So I show, we do, you do means that if a team member or staff member is learning something new, I first want to demonstrate how to do it, my thought process, talk them through the things that I'm thinking through and the expectations and methodologies of getting to the end product. The second step is we do, which means we sit side by side, and in this case, virtually over Teams, where we'll work on it together live in a working session so that if they have questions, I can answer them as they come up, and then I can point out additional items for them to consider. And you do, the third step means they then take it offline, work on it themselves, and then come back to me with the completed product.
And can I ask you about the results of that methodology, if I can call it a methodology? How is that working in practice?
That works pretty well in practice. I spend a lot of time in the we do phase, particularly, and I think that has the most success if you can work through specific examples of testing together or write parts of a narrative together, especially if they haven't done those types of activities before. That way, it gives them the opportunity to give feedback as well for how you're coaching them through it, and then you can adjust your technique. So I find that a lot of my team members may be more visual. So if I'm explaining a product, one of my signature moves is I pull up Microsoft Paint and I draw with my mouse a little diagram or flow chart or a visual for them, and then I sign it and date it and post it in the Teams chat for them.
Wow, that's awesome. That's awesome. So a little bit of fun, something
Yeah.
memorable in the whole process. Yeah, I think that's pretty cool. That's a fun way to do it. Um, and let me ask you then, kind of a sort of connected question, but maybe like how important are relationships in this whole thing that you do with mentoring and the coaching? Maintaining, building, maintaining relationships is something I talk a lot about, whether it's in my blog articles or webinars, whatever it is. So, how important is it from your perspective?
It's very important. It's probably one of the most important things in all of the work that we do is a relationship within a team, a relationship with the stakeholder, and anybody else that you might interact with over the course of your day. We have to be very understanding and keep in the forefront of our mind that everybody has their own day and journey going on, right? You might not know what their journey is, but we have to be cognizant that that's very personal for everybody and it's going to be different from person to person.
I think that is a hugely valuable insight. You just don't know what's going on behind the scenes for the other person. Could be all good stuff, could be a combo, or it could be that some, bad things have happened recently, or there's some scars there that have impacted how they communicate or how they take in information or how they respond to certain kinds of queries, all that kinds of things. So the word that bubbles up for me is empathy.
Yep. And at the end of the day, when you are working with a stakeholder or your team members, everybody just wants to be heard. So whether that's taking the time to show that you understand the stakeholders' business process and their careabouts and what's troubling them, that goes a long way. And with your team, making sure that you take the time to understand what's going on with them and what works best from them from like a coaching perspective or just how you interact and talk with them, that goes a long way as well.
I think that's a brilliant perspective to have. We can't treat everybody the same way, and it's often helpful to find out how they like to be treated. Actually, along that road. Working at McKesson must be fascinating. You're touching so many aspects of healthcare, from pharmaceuticals to oncology clinics. What are some of the unique challenges in auditing such a complex industry, if you're able to talk about those with us?
Sure. I think for me, the challenge is also the best part. I love a good challenge. So when you're looking at an industry like this, there's just so much to learn. And for me, that's also another reason why I got into audit. I feel like I get to learn something new every day. And as a child, I liked the how does this work books. So that's what it kind of reminds me of is I get to learn every day how does this work or how does that work. And that's so fun for me. So one of the challenges is that you might think through a standard business process, but you might have to tweak it or adjust your understanding of how it works for each of the different business units because each one's going to be just a little different. And might use different tools or might have different teams in play that just organize the process a little bit differently.
Do you find it takes a special mindset to kind of adapt that way to saying, well, there is one process, but it's different for each of the four business units? Because I find from my perspective, I've always said auditing is shades of gray, right? It's not a one or a zero and black and
Right.
white. And it sounds like in your environment, you've really got to be able to kind of think on your feet to be able to understand and know that it's okay in some situations.
You do, and that goes back to what we were talking about earlier with the stakeholder relationships and just understanding where everybody's at. And one business unit may be here on their journey and another business unit may be somewhere else. Or maybe our Canada business unit, for example, may have different regulations than our US business units. And you just have to take that into consideration when you're evaluating what you're looking at.
Okay. And and I know in terms of the audits that you do, you come from a perspective of integrated audits. So even though you're officially on the IT audit team right now, you mentioned you don't see yourself strictly as an IT auditor. How do you think about blending IT and traditional audit approaches?
So I've probably spent about half my career on financial and operations audit teams formally, and then half of it on the IT audit team. But a lot of the work that I do is integrated to where you're looking at a process, but you're considering all of those things holistically so that you get a more complete picture of what's going on. So you might look at an operational process, but look at the tool and the IT piece behind it so that you get a better understanding of how exactly the process runs and how the data in the system supports the process or does not.
I've always come from the perspective, well, I shouldn't say always maybe, but in the last 10 years, like every company is an IT company. So
Yes.
every auditor should be able or should have some of those quote unquote IT audit skills. How does that apply to your team today?
So my team today has a FinOps group and IT group, but we do have a lot of audits where we partner on engagements to have that shared perspective, or we do have common work programs for ITGCs that have been shared across the department to be applied to many types of audits, not just IT audits.
So do you think integrated is the way to go? Because I know when I work with some clients and I get reports to review from all the different teams, there's often, this region, this region, and an IT audit report. So how do you see that?
That's an interesting question because right now we do have audit reports region by like it's group by group and then IT, but I don't think that limits us from including an IT perspective on all of the reports because we do have IT audit findings on all of our types of reports, not just IT audits.
I think that's a great perspective. Really great perspective. So I think we need to focus on IT pretty much everywhere to some degree, right? Going forward, everything we do now, especially with this age of AI that we're in, it's really hard to avoid. Not it's hard to avoid IT anywhere. We touch IT with every breath we take, pretty much, right?
Yeah.
So, all right, I want to switch topics. I want to start flying high with you because you have an amazing, I don't know if a hobby is the right word for it or if it's something deeper than a hobby, but you do the flying trapeze. And I was shocked, surprised, and really proud to see that you have that kind of hobby. Tell us about it.
So I first saw flying trapeze on Groupon almost 9.5 years ago.
What does that
And
mean on Groupon? Can you
so,
elaborate? People
yeah,
that don't know.
Groupon is a site, here in the States, I don't know if it's in Canada as well, but it's a website where businesses can post their services or goods, typically at a discount, to get you to go try their, like, restaurant or service. So on Groupon, I saw the advertisement for flying trapeze in my area, and I told my friend that we had to go, and I fell in love with it and have been doing it since. It's become very important to me because I was not very physically active growing up and didn't participate in gymnastics or diving or anything like that. So for me, finding out what my body can accomplish from a physical perspective has been so fun to see and also very gives it gives me a good sense of accomplishment when I try something that I didn't know I could do.
Absolutely. But is there, I mean, the word fear comes to mind when I know I saw a picture of you in the article for the Rising Stars. I saw a picture of you flying through the air, and the word fear comes to mind. Not for you.
I still get scared. So and it but it's fun to be scared and then overcome it. So one of the things that I recently learned to do is called a standoff, where you start under the bar and then you end up standing up on top of the bar while it's in motion. and then kind of doing like a little flip off of it into the net. Um, when my friend first asked me if I would try it, my first reaction was, that sounds insane to stand up on top of a moving
That's
bar.
I mean,
It's
I would
only,
never.
like, maybe that thick around. Um, so I was like, "I'm absolutely going to die." But I didn't, and I did it I think I tried that trick about 10 times.
You could consider kind of coming out of the trapeze closet and sharing with your LinkedIn followers, a little clip. It is very interesting, it's very unique, it's very brave. Uh, I don't think that's one thing I would do. I did, a zip line across the Montmorency Falls in Quebec City this summer. For me, that was a very big deal. Now, I was strapped in, had the helmet. What's the safety factor for you and the trapeze?
So, when you first climb up the ladder, you have a belt on and you're clipped into what we call ladder lines, and it functions like a seatbelt. If you yank it too hard, it stops. So,
Mhm.
theoretically, if you were to fall off the ladder because it's a sudden yank, you would just stop and be suspended in midair. Once you're up there on the board and there you're swapped from the ladder lines to just the flying trapeze like lines, and those are connected to the rig and then down to the lines puller, and that way they're able to speed you up, slow you down, boost your height, or do anything they need to help with your trick. So once you are at a spot where you can hold all of your own weight, take off independently, and understand the the physics of the swing of the trapeze and how to fall safely into the net, you can go out of lines to where you don't wear that belt at all.
Is
So
that where you are?
for my swing, yes, but I don't have any tricks out of lines.
Okay.
So you can
Very
take a trick
cool.
out of lines as well.
Yeah. Okay, so now reflecting on this flying trapeze and the courage and the bravery and the learning process and the safety net around you, and meaning also the folks holding the ropes and things. Is there a way you can kind of translate that to the world of internal audit?
I think so. I think it helps me have the confidence to approach work or just personal challenges in that same way of knowing that I have that interpersonal safety net. Um, my management team, my audit team are there to support me.
Mhm.
And that gives me the, I guess, strength and courage to do what I need to do in terms of advancing in difficult situations or even just trying something new or auditing a new area that I might not feel as comfortable about.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Do you let go of that rope when you're flying through the air, or that bar and you're flying through the air?
Yes. How
And
else are you
I'm
gonna get down?
oh, oh yeah. But to be honest, when I think about that, and it's truly impressive. I'm not trying to overinflate your at all, but it's just impressive. And I imagine that if you can do that, if you can let go and trust in yourself, that must translate into your audit work. It must translate into your work. And then with the coaching that you do, I would think that there would be a ripple effect, that your team and the people that you mentor can see a little bit of fearlessness coming through. So well done, Jaimie. Really, really very impressive. All right. Between your volunteer work with the CPA Society and the II mentoring program, and juggling a demanding career and literally flying through the air, how do you manage to balance it all?
I will admit this is something that I continue to work on is an adequate work-life balance. But what's worked for me lately is to schedule a trapeze class after work, and that forces me to physically walk away from my computer and leave the house. So that's that's where it is right now.
You know what? That's just so logical and so practical that I think I'm gonna take that on board because working from home or working for wherever I am in the world, you just keep going or you take a 3-hour break and you start again or something like that. So that's a great little piece of practical advice I'm gonna take on is schedule something at the end of my day so that I get out of this chair. That's
Schedule dinner
nice.
with friends.
And you, let me know, on our prep call that you have invested hundreds of hours in your community, like hundreds and hundreds of hours in your community. What what drives you to do that?
I realized a few years ago that I am very accomplishment driven. I did not It's funny to think that I did not know that about myself until a few years ago. Um, but I do like the accomplishment and feeling that I have created that impact and done something to impact other people.
Mhm,
I also just all of my volunteerism is related to mentoring or helping people develop their path and their journey in accounting, but fine if they don't take accounting too, right? Whatever is appropriate for them, but it's all very related, and I think I have a lot of passion for that kind of work and helping other people discover something about themselves that they didn't know that they could do.
that's 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 a great kind of, like, internal passion of yours to help other people do that because we need people like you out in the world who are gonna just inspire by their own work, right? Hence why you're here on the podcast, I have to say. So I want to jump back to when we met at the Ignite conference, and I actually met you after the first of your two presentations. Can you tell us just first of all about what those two presentations were about?
Myself and 2 co-presenters, Flo and Alex, we led 2 sessions titled ChatGPT Battle, and the purpose of those sessions was to demonstrate through live prompting and live interaction with the tool, how you can use ChatGPT as an auditor, as well as some just kind of tips and tricks for things that you might not be aware of that ChatGPT had the functionality for. So we walked the audience through 3 battle rounds. We were dressed up as Hulk Hogan, and Macho Man, and Flo was our ref, and we did 3 rounds across, like, the planning stage of an audit, scoping, as well as field work and testing, and then, like, kind of the wrap-up reporting stage. So, within those rounds, Alex and I both demonstrated a prompt and talked through our thought process of how we wanted to maybe adjust the prompt to get different results, how we could use ChatGPT to generate graphs, best practices, metrics, KPIs, and use the tool to use like enhanced soft skills as well through interviewing during field work.
Can I ask you about the soft skills one? I mean, number one, it was all impressive, right? And you had 5 minutes each to do this. And it really was a battle. For anyone who's watching us, it really was a battle. And there was a clock and there was pressure, and everyone in the audience was like waiting with bated breath to see what kind of output you were going to produce. And it just shows the power of using an LLM in audit work. So let me ask you, about how you use it for soft skills and communication. Can you elaborate a little bit? Because you know that's near and dear to my heart.
Yeah. So a lot of the time I see folks use ChatGPT almost to generate ideas. And what we can also use it for is to practice walkthrough interviews. So the setup during the presentation was you use ChatGPT to generate some potential walkthrough questions, follow-up questions, and stakeholder for you. But then the question goes, now that you have the questions, what do you do with them? How do you ask them? What do you do when you get in the room to introduce yourself on the call, make the stakeholder feel comfortable, make sure that they have the right context for what's going on, and then get into the questions so it doesn't feel like it's a transactional interaction, but a conversation. So ChatGPT can simulate a conversation between yourself and a stakeholder. I think the prompt that was used went along the lines of pretend that you are a business stakeholder owning this process, and I'm here as an internal auditor with some questions for you. And you can have ChatGPT go one by one or present the whole conversation to you at a time.
I think that's brilliant. I don't think people use ChatGPT enough for those types of topics, right? Everyone's thinking, oh, let me get it to edit my writing, uh, which is one way to do it. But what you and Alex did was truly impressive, and the things that you could accomplish in 5 minutes was truly impressive. So, do you have any links or anything on those things that are public?
We didn't publish it.
Yeah,
We only uploaded it to
the
uh,
conference.
the conference site.
Yeah. Okay. Well, there you go. There's the power of going to a conference is you get to see this kind of stuff in play, right? Really, truly fascinating. And you did two of those sessions, and I'm betting the room was just as full the second time as it was the first time, or maybe even fuller because people had heard about the first session, right? So, well done. Based on your experience mentoring and volunteering with students, what advice would you give to young professionals considering internal audit as a career?
I think the main advice that I would have for them is take the time to figure out what you want out of the career. There are so many types of internal audit jobs and positions, so many different types of companies and roles that you can pursue, and none of it is wrong. It's just about what the best fit is for you.
So do you think I'm just, reflecting on way back when I studied and, I have a degree in honors chartered accountancy studies, a 4-year degree. Went to work immediately for one of the big firms. Thankfully, was put in the financial services audit group because if I'd been put in the small business audit group, I don't think I'd be here today. Um, dif, dif, do young professionals know enough to be able to kind of say, I want to be, the assurance auditor, I want to be an IT auditor, or I want to get into that aspect?
I think it depends, unfortunately, on the school and the program that they have and the content related to internal audit or accounting in general. That's why I think the work that I do with the CPA Society comes into play there because it offers the opportunity to meet other many types of accountants. And depending again on the program, there may be the opportunity for you to learn, like take a dedicated class on internal audit and learn about those different career options.
I think that's the best way to do it is if you're studying accounting is great, right? I mean, that's the first thing I thought is I'm going to be an accountant. Um, and then I took my first auditing course and it changed the whole game, you know? It was like a whole new world that opened up. So I love the outreach that you're doing. And despite it, maybe with a focus with accountants and accounting students that you're encouraging them to check out auditing. And I think that's, I always used to say information is power. I think execution is power, right? The more so finding out and then executing and trying these different things might be super helpful. All right. So in terms of wrapping up, um, I'm wondering where you go from here. You've accomplished so much in your career so far. You've been recognized as a rising star in Texas. You're making an impact through mentoring. You're building out new audit methodologies in your company. You're doing all of these things. What's next on the horizon for Jaimie?
That's a great question. I have found a lot of joy in being able to drive strategic mindset for my department at this time. And I look forward to being able to continue to do that either in my volunteer work or in my career. So I mentioned that I was asked to be on different committees for the FY25 to 26 year after I move on from the PIE committee. So those two committees are more advisory in nature. And I look forward to being able to provide my input and perspective on different types of issues, not just the partners in education, which I do still love, but to be able to see other work streams and other committees work across those societies.
So we're going to keep our eye on you, and we're going to see what you bring over the coming years, because I think you've got a bright future ahead of you, and I think the profession will gain so much from you being involved in the local community that you're in, as well as the broader community with the IIA Global. So thank you very much for joining me. It's been a real pleasure to chat with you. I'd love to know more about the flying trapeze, to be honest. And so thank you very much. For everyone out there, I hope you connect with Jaimie on LinkedIn. We'll put her link in the show notes. And thank you.
Thank you so much for having me, Tracy. It was a pleasure.
Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining us on this episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast. We'd love for you to stay part of our growing community, so subscribe wherever you're listening. If you're enjoying our content on platforms like iTunes or Spotify, a quick 5-star rating from you would mean the world to us. It's a small action that supports our mission immensely. Don't forget to explore the show notes for various links and join our vibrant community on all our social media platforms. Your interaction and support play a crucial role in amplifying the voices of inspiring women in audit and spreading their inspiring stories even further. Thank you for being a part of our journey, and we'll catch you in the next episode of the Inspiring Women in Audit podcast.